Hey everybody, this is for CC Cycle 3, Week 20. We are doing Orchestra, and our focus this week is on Peter Tchaikovsky. So for Week 19, it's pretty simple. We just do like an overview of Orchestra and introduce it. So for this week, we just focus on one composer and one piece. And it's actually only even part of a piece. So, all right, so for those of you that are new, where you get this information from, I'll go over that real quick before I get started. So if you turn to Week 20, in your foundations guide, you'll see down here where you've been looking at all of your fine arts. It'll have Tchaikovsky Symphony Number 6, see page 258. And then so when you turn to 258, let me go there. Now 258. All it's gonna have is right here. It just says Week 20 Tchaikovsky Symphony Number 6. And so this is where a lot of tutors, new tutors, get lost in finding this information. So what you want to do is go to your classical music for dummies like this, and on page 152, well, in this edition it's page 152, so I hope it's the same for you guys. We'll see Tchaikovsky Symphony Number 6, and it has a number 7 right here. So if you have the one with the CD, it's number 7 on your CD. And then if you have it, I think it's online, it should be the same number. So just look for Tchaikovsky Symphony Number 6. We are doing the 4th movement. We're not doing the whole entire thing, which I think is probably like 30-40 minutes long. We're only doing the 4th movement. So it talks with each composer on each week, even the ones that we did in cycle 2 and cycle 1. It kind of talks about the composer a little bit, and it gives you a timestamp for the whole entire thing. So this one's probably the hardest to go off of. I like to off-road on this one just because it's so dark, and I feel like a lot of this stuff cannot be shared with our classes. So the information on Peter Tchaikovsky is on page, I want to say 150. No, that's what page we're on. 152. Oh, page 72 in this book, Classical Music for Dummies, page 72. It talks more about Peter Tchaikovsky. There's not a lot that you can share with little ones in there. You can read that for yourself and look up a lot about his life, and you'll see there's a lot of editing we have to do. So I think to get started with my lesson for what I'm going to do, I start the day off by kind of reminding them what orchestra is, and that this week, today, we're going to be focused on the Romantic period, and reminding them that the Romantic period was from like the early 1800s to the mid and late 1800s. And then I'm going to tell them that today we're going to talk about a composer named Peter Tchaikovsky. So he was a Russian Romantic composer. And so he is most famous for the Nutcracker, Swan Lake, and those types of things. Usually the moms will connect with that and, say, oh, okay, Nutcracker, Swan Lake, right. So when you go on to read about his life, it is very dark, and there's maybe some stuff that's not appropriate for a class. So I'm really just kind of going to talk about how his parents noticed a lot of talent in him whenever he was younger, but they wanted him to have more of a well-to-do career, and so they wanted him to be a lawyer. This is usually pretty common for musicians when we start to look into their life. Their parents a lot of times their parents didn't really want them to pursue that. They wanted them to do something else, like be a lawyer or a doctor or something like that. But they did take him to concerts and let him learn more about music. Anyway, so just share a little bit about his life that you think is interesting or appropriate. And so moving on to this piece, Symphony Number 6, we are doing the 4th movement. Now, a lot of times as a tutor, you can, CC wants us to encourage them to just not be doing this once a week, but maybe to look into it more at home. So what you can do is in your little parent email or something, put the composer's name and maybe a few other pieces that they could listen to at home, so that they're diving into that more at home. You can just offer that. So page 152, Symphony Number 6, the 4th movement. This is the last movement. So usually I follow along with the timestamp a lot, but This one's kind of dark, and I don't think the kids always understand that. And yes, if you do look at everything that he went through in his life, a lot of people look at that and say this was like almost like counseling, like relief for him to write this. And maybe that's true, but I think it depends on what you're looking at and what you're feeling on the day that you listen to this. So when my kids were little and they listened to this, they felt like it was funeral music. But if you're having a cup of coffee and you're watching the sunrise, it actually evokes some different emotions. So it's different for everybody. And that's fine. The kids can feel how they want to feel about this piece. Maybe some think it's sad and maybe some think it's beautiful. So, and you can engage them, talk to them about it. Like, how does it make you feel inside? So, I have some other things that I kind of want to point out, and I'm not going to follow along with the remarks of depression and crying. I just don't think that the little ones want to hear about that. So, I did make some lyrics to this one. The reason I try to do that sometimes is to like help them identify those melodies so that they're not getting lost. They're actively trying to listen for those words in the song. And then also too, I mean, when Beethoven's Fifth Symphony comes on, my kids know it right away because they'll sing the words Beethoven's Fifth, Beethoven's Fifth. So it helps them. It helps it stick. So for the main melody in this one, it's Tchaikovsky Number Six. Those are the lyrics for that. And so I'll show you whenever when it first comes on. So when we first turn this on, we're going to hear the violins with the melody and the horns softly in the background. Now the horns come out a little louder later, but so we'll mostly just hear violins in the beginning. So I'll go ahead and get it started. And I want to just say that this is a really good piece to pull in our tin whistle vocabulary. You guys have already put in the stress and the work and the time into tin whistle. So use that vocabulary that you guys already went over in music theory and pull it into this. Use the history that we've already been learning in our timeline and pull it into this. This doesn't have to, we don't have to like recreate anything here. So I'll go ahead and get it started. And I'll just pause and kind of talk about it. So what I do with my lessons in class is that I introduce the time period and the composer, and then I keep pausing this and talking about it, pointing out things, and then I play it all again the second time, and they just listen to it. I don't pause it. They just get to rest and listen to it. So that's what I plan on doing. So if you want me to go ahead and walk you through this, then you can stay on the video, and I'll keep pausing it and pointing out different things. So that's the lyrics I'm putting with this. Tchaikovsky Number Six. And we're going to hear that melody throughout the piece. So those are the lyrics I'm putting with that to kind of help them know the composer and what symphony number this is. So we hear mainly the violins with the melody and the horns in the background. And then so here we're going to hear a crescendo, so we can talk about that. So crescendo is when the music grows and gets louder. And so an easy way to explain that would be like turning the volume up. Anytime you feel like someone's turning the volume up, that's a crescendo. So we'll hear one coming up soon, just like a soft, slow little crescendo. This is also a good time when you talk about crescendo and the volume increasing or decreasing. We can pull in our music theory, our tin whistle vocabulary, and talk about piano, forte, mezzo piano, and those different volumes. So that's a good thing to pull in as well. So we're going to hear another crescendo, and it's going to go back to that original melody. Tchaikovsky Number Six. We're going to hear that original melody from the beginning and a crescendo. And take note of the volume here. It's like at mezzo piano or piano. It's very soft, it's very low. So they can use the vocabulary that they already have to identify the volumes here. Okay, I'll pause it here, so it's a good time to pause it. So upcoming, we're going to have it where we switch to major key. And so to keep this very simple without confusing anybody, major and minor key are just some tools that musicians use when they write music. And so you can learn more about that in this book. They have YouTube videos on it. You could just Google it if you want to learn more about it. And if you're like, no, not for me, I just want to stay on the surface level, the easiest way to explain it would be that in minor key, things sound dark and sad and gloomy, cloudy. And then in major key, it's like the sun is shining and we're happy. So those are that's really the difference that you will hear when you're not looking at the music to see if this is in major or this is in minor. So just simply listening to it, you're going to hear a different sound. It's been kind of dark and cloudy, or maybe the sun hasn't come up yet. And when we switch from minor to major, it's almost like the sun's coming out, or the sun's coming up, or the clouds are parting, and it's a little happier day. So try to listen for that. It's hard even for some adults, but some students can really hear it. They can hear the difference. So I'll go ahead and play that and try to listen for that change. And then it happens here in the next couple of minutes. It happens about 4 times. You'll hear that little switch to major where it's like, oh, the sun's starting to come out, the clouds are parting. There's some hope to be had here. Or maybe it's the sun is coming up or something. So I'll go ahead and play now. So we hear some slight volume increases going like a little bit up and look a little bit back down to where we started. So maybe like a mezzo piano to like a mezzo forte, you know, it's not a huge difference. We're not going from really soft to really loud, but maybe that shift in there, a little bit of volume increase, and then back down to like mezzo piano. Kind of reached the forte status here. It's getting a little more forceful for the musicians to play. We just keep going gradually in little pieces, little bits and bites here, up in volume. So we're going to keep growing in volume here, and we're going to go past forte into fortissimo, and then even louder still, and I'll talk about that as well. Okay, so here's where it gets really forceful. So we're going to learn a new word. We learned pianissimo, piano, mezzo piano, mezzo forte, forte, and fortissimo. So fortissimo, that's when you have 2 of those little cursive Fs on your music. But when you have 3, it's fortissimo. And that is when you are just, I mean, the musicians are doing it as forceful as they can. It's almost like screaming. So we're going to hear that blasting, blaring from the instruments, the musicians here, and it's fortissimo. Notice too, there is a loudness in the volume, but the scale, we're going down. We are just in our descending scale. We also learned about that in tin whistle. Let me pull it up for you so that scale. In our foundations curriculum, let me find that. Oh, here we go. So remember, if you remember in tin whistle, we had the ascending scale and the descending scale. So for, which one am I on here? For ascending, we're going up in our notes. Like that. But then descending, we're going down, lower notes, not necessarily in volume, but in the pitch of the notes. So here, if you pay attention, even though it's loud, we can hear it descending down the scale, and the notes are getting lower. So here now we start descending very fast. It's almost like you're just running down the stairs. So pay attention to that as well. So here, it just started. So here we're going to have a crescendo go up in volume, and we're going to go right back to that original melody of the Tchaikovsky Number Six. So far, whenever we do the Tchaikovsky Number Six, we hear very strong with the melody, the violins, the strings, and the horns are just kind of playing that background music. So here we're going to hear the horns a little bit louder. We'll be able to hear them a little better, and so you can make a note of that as well. You're about to hear the horns a little louder. Those are the horns. So now we're about to have another crescendo, so we're going to go up in volume, and you guessed it, after we go up in volume, we're going to hear the Tchaikovsky Number Six melody again. So notice the volume's going up. We're going into forte, fortissimo, and we're going to hit that fortissimo again. It's going to be very, very loud. Okay, so we're going to hear, we grew loud again, and now we're going to hear the Tchaikovsky Number Six tune again. But this time, notice that the notes and the key is a little different here. It's the same melody, we can hear it, but it sounds a little different than it did in the beginning. So we're going to get down really, really soft here, all the way down to pianissimo. These are the horns that you hear. We're getting close to the end. So really the rest of this, we kind of hear it go up a little bit in volume, but then die down to like a pianissimo. A little bit in volume, down to pianissimo, until it slowly just fades out. How it keeps just going softer and softer down into nothing. So that's really it. That's it. That's the whole thing. So I know I didn't follow the timestamp exactly, but this one's just kind of dark, and I don't want to share everything from his life and depression and such. But you can feel free to do that. Just follow along with the timestamp. I just kind of focus more on volume and pulling into and whistle stuff. So I would say the biggest tip of all to prepare, either way, whether you stick to this timestamp or whether you pull out different instruments and volumes, the biggest thing overall is just to keep, when the week that you're preparing, just keep listening to it. Listen to it when you're brushing if you're going to be brushing your teeth and doing your makeup or something, listen to it in the car. That way you're more in tune and you know what's coming next. It's like, oh, right, this is where the music gets loud again. So that's it. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I hope this was helpful for you. So have a great week and enjoy Orchestra, and just let them relax. And if the little tiny ones fall asleep, that's fine. They probably needed the nap anyway. So, all right, guys, enjoy. Have fun.